Good evening. I'm Kara McCarty, Curatorial Director at the Smithsonian's Cooper-Hewitt National Design Museum. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We're delighted you're here to join in this discussion. This is just one of many public programs that Cooper-Hewitt offers as part of its mission to highlight the impact of design on daily life through active education programs, exhibitions, and publications. Cooper-Hewitt's main facility, housed in the Carnegie Mansion, is undergoing a major renovation that includes enlarged and enhanced facilities for exhibitions, collection displays, education programs, the National Design Library, and the Cooper-Hewitt Parsons Master's Program in Decorative Arts and Design. During the renovation, Cooper-Hewitt's exhibitions, education programs, and events are staged at locations around the city, such as here in the green space. The Smithsonian and Cooper-Hewitt are committed to advancing the field of socially responsible design, as demonstrated through our groundbreaking Design with the Other 90% exhibition series, and the establishment of a curatorial position dedicated to this burgeoning field of design. This is a really exciting evening for a number of reasons, and it was particularly gratifying to broaden this important discussion of socially responsible design with this evening's panel and the publication of this white paper, which is hot off the press. I hope you all got a copy when you came in, but it represents a year of very dedicated work by a number of passionate people in the field. We would like to take a moment to thank the National Endowment for the Arts, the Lemelson Foundation, Cerdna Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation for their support of the Social Impact Design Summit in 2012 and their involvement with the white paper and this evening's event. Design has emerged as a powerful tool to offer ingenious solutions to the world's most complex problems. Almost 1 year ago today, on February 27th, 2012, Cooper-Hewitt, the Lemelson Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation for the Arts, with the support of Cerdna Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts, convened leaders from the design community, industry, public, private sectors to discuss ways to advance the field of socially responsible design. The summit provided a forum for individuals and organizations with innovative approaches to socially responsible design, as well as public and private funders who support invention, innovation, and design efforts to discuss the challenges facing this developing field. What continues to strike me, as it does many people in the design community, is that our exceedingly wealthy country still lags behind in many social dimensions. Far more attention is paid to poverty in the global South, yet little discussion is given to poverty and social performance in this country. I am very encouraged by the action items noted in the white paper, plus the efforts of the summit sponsors, which are important strides. I would also like to acknowledge Julie Lasky, who authored the white paper. It is now my pleasure to welcome Jason Shupack, Design Director for the National Endowment for the Arts, where Jason oversees all design and creative placemaking grants and partnerships. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kara. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much to the leadership of the Smithsonian Cooper-Hewitt National Design Museum for making this event happen. Thank you to the acting director, Caroline Bowman, and particularly Bill Moggridge, our friend and illustrious host of the summit last year, who we really dearly miss. He was amazing. Also, thanks to the amazing Cynthia Smith and Sarah Friedman, who stewarded this project from inception to execution. And I want to thank all of the attendees of the summit last spring. Can you just raise your hand if you were there? Okay, a lot of those folks are here. Great, thanks. And thank you again to Julie Lasky, who really wrote a great white paper, and I hope you guys all do take the moment to download it. And finally, a huge thanks to the Lemelson Foundation for partnering with us in CERDNA and the Rockefeller Foundation for their support of the summit. So, the National Endowment for the Arts. We were a federal agency established by Congress in 1965 as an independent agency. We've awarded more than $4 billion to support artistic excellence, creativity, and innovation for the benefit of individuals and communities. And we are very, very lucky tonight because we actually have the acting chairman of the NEA here, Joan Shikagawa. Raise your hand, Joan. Thank you so much for joining us. She, whether you might not know, has been a very long champion of this particular field. When she was at the Rockefeller Foundation, she funded the original design for the Other 90% show. So we're thrilled that you could be here tonight, Joan. So the design program at the NEA provides direct grants to nonprofit organizations, and we really view ourselves as one of the federal stewards of the design field, supporting the creative life of the United States design community in a multitude of ways. So we closely track trends, and we adjust our grant making to assist the field appropriately. So about a year ago, we were connected up to the Lemelson Foundation through IDEO.org. And as we spoke to Abby Sarmak there, the Lemelson Foundation program officer, it really became clear to us that there was a real trend going on in the field. Designers more and more wanted to do something great for society. And student enrollment in educational programs for social innovation and design was really growing exponentially. So we both wanted to learn more about what was going on in this trend, to see where it would make sense for it to really assist in building support for it. So we were absolutely thrilled that the Cooper-Hewitt jumped on board enthusiastically to join us as a very willing and very able partner in coordinating the summit and the report, and that CERDNA Foundation joined us in funding the process. So today we're really thrilled about the release of this report because it really is the first federal paper ever on this topic of social impact design. We're doing this to highlight the work in the field for funders and for designers themselves. We're doing this to acknowledge the discipline diversity of the field. There's product designers working on this. There's built environment designers working on this work. And really to talk about the challenges this work faces and point out some of the actionable items that can support designers who really want to do this work. So what's next for us? While the report is really a call to action for much of the field to continue working on this, the NEA is specifically taking the following actions. We have already changed our design grant guidelines to specifically include language about social impact design, which we're thrilled about. And we also really want to foster the ongoing dialogue in this area. So tonight we are announcing a series of guest-curated social impact design webinars between April and August of this year to continue this conversation directly on the topics identified in the summit as the most pressing issues for the field. So the hosts of those are John Carey, who I believe is here. Raise your hand, John. Back there. Bill Dentrell, who's right here in the front row, and actually the NEA's own Jen Hughes, who deserves a round of your applause because she worked really hard on this. She's really been the force behind making all this happen at the agency. So you can find out more at arts.gov and cooperhewitt.org. And so thank you all again, and stay tuned. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Judy Lee Reed, Director of the Thriving Cultures Program at the CERDNA Foundation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Hi. Well, I just have some brief remarks. On behalf of the CERDNA Foundation, I just want to thank the organizers of the summit for putting this together, and also for the report, its proceedings and key findings, which I'm sure will carry on with great currency. As a relatively new area of focus for CERDNA, support for the Social Impact Design Summit presented an opportunity to explore public interest design through a dialogue among design service providers and leaders in the field. We're so happy that we could be a part of this collective seeking opportunities to share practice and to reflect on the developing field of public interest design. At CERDNA, our work centers on social justice, and it's impossible to address social justice without looking closely at merging community dynamics and evolving demographies. These are two key forces that help us understand the characteristics of community, its opportunities and challenges toward fulfilling healthy places to live and sustainability for the long term. So to us, community engagement activities, or at CERDNA, what we call community engaged design, are essential to community-based, empowered, equitable approaches and solutions. Now, as we continue collectively our discrete and group efforts to build best practice, I would ask that we all think about what else needs to be done. Specifically, let's consider how to build cultural competencies and engagement methodologies that ensure diverse participation in design solutions. Now, as we move forward, I wonder if we could continue to tackle the following questions. First, how do we define diversity as a much deeper issue than statistical balance? Second, how can we promote that kind of diversity in tables of leadership and decision-making? And then third, how do we identify and integrate both experienced perspectives as key contributors and cultural understandings as key assets in our work? We are just so thrilled, so excited to continue learning about these important themes along with you, and I thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you very much, Jason and Judy Lee. This has been a wonderful collaboration with the Cooper-Hewitt, and we look forward to a lot more partnerships with you, and this is just the beginning of a lot of future possibilities. Now I'd like to introduce Cynthia E. Smith, the moderator for this evening's discussion. She is the curator of socially responsible design at Cooper-Hewitt. She organizes the Design with the Other 90% exhibition series, which explores the growing movement among designers to develop solutions for people not traditionally served by the professional design community. The second exhibition in the series, Design with the Other 90% Cities, is currently on display at Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Cynthia is already actively at work on the next exhibition in her series, which will focus on design solutions here in the United States.
We're almost there, folks. I just have to switch PowerPoints. There'll be a whole series of switching PowerPoints tonight. So thank you, Kara, and also the rest of the Cooper-Hewitt team. There are a number of you here tonight, especially Sarah Freeman. I don't know where Sarah is, in the back. Thank you, Sarah, who magnificently managed the summit and tonight's event, and also the publication. The publication, by the way, can be downloaded, and then on your way out tonight, there'll be a hard copy for you. Not sure why this isn't playing. There we go. Very good. I'd also like to thank Jason and Judy Lee and the Lemelson Foundation's Abby Sarmak, who could not be here tonight. And a special thank you to Jennifer, who's sitting in the front row, Jennifer Hughes from the NEA, who closely worked with our team on both the summit and the paper. So tonight we're streaming live, and if you'd like to reference the panel later, you can find the full footage on Cooper-Hewitt's YouTube channel. And for those of you who are on Twitter, this is our hashtag, social impact design. So a year ago, we brought together a diverse group of leading practitioners and educators working in this area of social impact design, and posed 3 questions to the group. Where are the gaps for social impact design? What are the successful and sustainable organizational models in this area of design? How can we prepare the next generation? The resulting report, just published, chronicles the day's discussions. It draws a picture of a professional area that has demonstrated many achievements and much promise, along with numerous gaps and challenges that inhibit this ongoing work. So you can imagine, with a room full of designers, we arrived at a number of thoughtful and innovative solutions, both short-term actions and longer-term strategies. There were 5 general proposals that emerged from this exchange of ideas. The first, and and one that you'll hear being addressed tonight. We actually invited 5 different speakers who will focus on each one of these proposals, is to expand networks and foster knowledge sharing to expand interdisciplinary research and participation. Another is to emphasize storytelling. What we mean by that is we need to be able to tell the story of the value of design in addressing critical issues. As designers, we don't often do a good job of that. The third is to build a culture of evaluation that will create decisive benchmarks for design initiatives and projects. We need to form intelligent coalitions. This is already beginning. You'll hear one of our speakers tonight talk about one way that's already beginning. That will expand learning resources, both locally and globally. And the last, create alternative funding strategies to enable innovative and ongoing support for this work. Right now, I'd like to invite our panelists to the stage now. If you could enter over here and take your seats. Ezio is here on the left. Our panelists were all participants, or their organizations were represented at the summit. We have asked them to expand on one of the 5 proposals tonight that's outlined in the report, and to lead the discussion on how best to move forward and develop this growing area of design. We'll leave some time at the end for question and answer. Right here to my right is Ezio Manzini. He is the director of the Interdepartmental Center for Research on Innovation for Sustainability at the Milan Polytechnic University in Italy. Ezio has been working for more than 2 decades in the field of design for sustainability, with a special focus on social innovation. On this topic, he started and currently coordinates DESIS, which stands for Design for Social Innovation and Sustainability, an international network promoting design schools as agents of social change towards sustainability. To his right is Mariana Amatullo. She is the vice president and co-founder of Designmatters at the Art Center College of Design in California, a program where students work across disciplines to advance positive social change by applying good design to an array of social problems. Mariana is an active author and essayist and lectures internationally on social impact design, serves on a variety of advisory boards and networks engaged in the arts, design, education, and social activism. Bryan Bell in the center is the founder of Social Economic Environmental Design Network, SEED, and the executive director of Design Corps. Bryan founded Design Corps in 1991 with the mission to to provide the benefits of architecture to those traditionally unserved by the profession. Bell's current work includes public interest design, which is focused on a triple bottom line evaluation called the SEED Evaluator. He'll talk more about that later. Nadia El Kordi, to his right, is the interim program manager for IDIN, the newly formed International Development Innovation Network. Nadia has helped organize the last 5 MIT D-Lab International Development Design Summits. She is standing in as the program manager for IDIN as it transitions from an annual event organized and run by a core of volunteers to a rapidly growing network of alumni, innovation centers, and consortium of institutions coordinated by a dedicated staff. Last, we have Krista Donaldson, who is the CEO of D-Rev. Krista has driven innovation in product design, engineering, and international development for more than 15 years. As D-Rev CEO, Krista's led the release of Brilliance, a revolutionary device to treat severe neonatal jaundice, and the Remotion prosthetic knee to remobilize above-knee amputees. What I'd like to do now, as each one of the speakers will come up, I'm going to kind of frame the conversation as each of them join me at the podium. One gap identified in the white paper and at the summit was the lack of one central knowledge hub that spanned design disciplines. Ezio Manzini will discuss expanding networks and fostering knowledge sharing through his work with the DESIS network.
It works, incredible. So, thank you. Good evening. I'm looking for Sarah, who should say when it's 10 minutes. There? Ah, yeah. Okay, but I don't see you, so if you stay there, I don't see anything. I can speak for 2 hours. So it's very dangerous. You have to be very visible with a gun. Okay. Now, seriously. No, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. And also a little bit moved because I am probably the most exotic here speaking in my Italian English, so forgive me. It will be maybe more amusing. And as has been kindly said by Cynthia, I deal with many friends and colleagues on design for social innovation. And of course, the topic of social innovation is very broad and can invest not only the very poor, but also the very rich, because social innovation can impact on anybody. But for several reasons, I've chosen in this case to concentrate in what happened when we talk about social innovation for the 90%. And I like to start, because I feel that this is very important, quoting Bill Murridge, that I think for me, and no, for sure for me, and I think for everybody, has been such an important person. But beyond that, beyond the fact that I felt that it was, by the way, I'm here probably thanks to Bill, because I've been Bill that invited me to the meeting last year. In any case, I find that this short phrase that I took from the book, Design for the Other 90%, the cities, give a very good starting point for our discussion. Because it observed that when we talk about the informal settlements, whatever we can call it, of course they are places where there are few services. So you can define it as underserviced settlement, underserviced community. And of course, if we are a designer, we can think if they are underserviced, something has to be done to give more services. This is quite obvious. It's part of our DNA, but at the same time, in the same phrase, a position where we are, and I think many of us share the same ideas, because there has been many years in which social design, design for the poor, has been a kind of a caritative attitude. So there are somebody that is poor and we have to do something for them. But now we are discovering that there is some richness there, that there are some ingenuity, some capability of doing things, some informal network that are necessary, because given that they are informal, the society has to be kept together, so they have to have some way to organize themselves. And so in some way this makes more complicated and most interesting, in my view, our work as designer, because at the same time we have to recognize that there are some needs, but also we have to recognize what are the capabilities. We have to recognize what are the potentialities. So we have to look to the place where we want to intervene, not only as a lot of people with problems, but also a lot of people with capabilities, skill, knowledge, a social network, something that has to be used and give value to it. So we have an issue about if it is true, we have to redefine what is the role of design, because it's not only to look to the needs and to say what we can do to solve the problem, but it's also to look to the opportunity and what we can do to empower, to help this opportunity to grow. And this poses a question that is not only about what can design do, but also how the design do it. That is equally important, because very often the way in which we enter in the process of design is per se a part of this empowering potentiality that we should have. So these are the two questions that I want to start from, hopefully very shortly. And of course now we discuss, and this was also the title of the book. It's interesting, the first book was designed for the other 90%. The second book was designed with the other 90%. Of course, we have understood that if we want to be part of this process in which people are empowered, we have to work with them. And what does it mean for designer to work with them? And especially we say, remember, for my work, I work mostly with students, professors, etc. So what does it mean to bring some students and work with the community? Well, I think that there is a lot of things that the designer can do. And one point that I would like to underline is that there are some design activities, and I listed there a lot of design activities that can be done by some people that have some knowledge in design. So we are not only to judge how the designer can participate to the final result of having a new product or having a new system, but the designer can make exploration, design can make ethnographic research, design can make prototyping. They can do a lot of things that could be useful in the work with them. And at the same time, we have to think that to create social change, even if the core of the social change is the change in the community, but the community living in an environment. So for who deal with social innovation, is well known that the social innovation is done by people, but happen in a context. That is rules, regulation, general cultures, tools that exist. So as designer, we can have a lot to do. Also, to work to create a better environment in which the social change can happen. So my statement here is that when we think of what the design community can do, we have not only to think to the normal scene in which you have some designer with the community, but we have a lot of different places in which something can happen if the overall community keep in account that we have the possibility to do something for those that are in this condition, for instance, that we call the informal settlement. So I started to introduce the notion that, I don't know if it is shared by all of you, but could be discussed, that the design process today is not anymore a linear design process, that you start from the analysis and you end up with the product, but it's a network in which at the different nodes, different design activity can happen, and afterward, all these different activities networked can generate transformation. In my view, this is a very general statement that is valuable for all the design in the networked society, and is particularly true if we talk about social change. Social change is not the result of a single intervention, but is the result of many different activities that can be done, and that have been done with using some design tools. And it's in this framework that, in my view, the role of the school can be particularly important, because the School of Design, with their professor, with the student, with the researcher, can operate at different nodes of this network, and they can do, I think, a very important role, because the school are relatively free. The school can work also before having new big budgets. So there is a kind of resources in the School of Design that can be used in a better way, useful for the student because they can have a fantastic opportunity of experience, but also useful because it's an energy that can be directed in a direction that could be really useful for everybody. And what they can do, as I said, of course they can make brainstorming with the people and invent new things. But this is very difficult, in some way also dangerous. But there are a lot of other design initiatives. For instance, now I show very quickly something, all the action of mapping. And you can promote mapping, as for instance, here I quote Green Maps. You can be in New York and do a fantastic job that permit to somebody in Curitiba to make a map. So the way in which you can help the process has to be seen in a larger scenario in which we are in a connected society and things can happen in a much larger way. You can have assessment, you can have ethnographic research. Here I use some examples that come from some project that I know, so it's not only a theory that can be done. So this is the kind of activity that are happening. Amplifying means give more visibility to some interesting storytelling that is a very important aspect that will be developed afterward by Mariana, or creating connection. This is a very interesting project of connection in between Brazilian experience and African experience that took place last year. So this is maybe was it finished 1 minute, fantastic. There was two proposals that I will say is 30 minutes each, 30 seconds each. The first one is in this framework in which the network is not only exchanging information, the network is much more than that. It's developing together a kind of distributed design agency that can generate this kind of huge transformation. And what we can do, for instance, one topic is that if we don't create arenas in which we discuss a more specific issue that I call thematic clusters, we risk always to reinvent the wheel. We risk that every single project restarts from the beginning, where we know that there are in general, and for the school in particular, some topics that have been treated. They could be a better, safer neighborhood in Santiago del Chile. You make some experience. You can have better, safer neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. And there is some, of course, they are very diverse, but they are also similar. So to find clusters and around which to establish some specialized, not specialized, I don't like this term, a more focalized arena in which you can confront one with the other could be very important. And here I put rural-urban partnership. Here we are in Beijing, here we are in Minas Gerais, or updating craft. There is a lot of people that work in craft in the villages, and they have to talk each other to exchange experience and maybe to find some new tools to intervene. Or the issue about distributed and open production, that is a very interesting issue both in the most rich part of the world, but could be very important also to introduce new opportunity of job and work also in places as the one that I'm treating to. And the second one, this will be very short. There is a kind of idea that we have verified everywhere we are talking about social innovation, that to accelerate social innovation, you have to create some places that are a little bit protected in which some social experiment can be done. This is valuable in New York, is valuable in Italy, and is particularly valuable if we talk about this informal settlement. And as a matter of fact, there are some places in which there are the beginning, sorry, it's here, the community innovation places, so to create places in which this experimentation can be done. And I think that this is really a very important issue that is not so difficult, but permit to create a habitat in which different people with different backgrounds can confrontate and experiment something new. Just to conclude, I know that there is a discussion about the fact that the designer, when they work with those kind of informal settlement, can be seen as a kind of imperialist. There be this discussion, and I think the discussion was very serious. But I think that there was a kind of mistake, that it's imperialist if it's done in a certain way. But if we consider the new network society, in the network there is a kind of peer-to-peer relationship. Each one can make its own role and have the courage. So if I am a designer in New York, I am a designer in New York, I have to understand what I can do, having my capability, being here, and having respect for the capability of the other inside the spirit of the network. So I think that this is my interpretation of the notion of network, not only to have many people in the network to exchange information, but to create a network in the spirit of a kind of a huge distributed design agency for social impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ezio. That was wonderful. So the value of social impact design coming from the summit and reflected in the report has not been effectively communicated to the social sector. Mariana Amatullo in Designmatters, on the other hand, has been effectively explaining the value of design to the social sector for more than a decade. So would you join us at the podium? Let's take this down. Thank you.
So, good evening. It is really a delight to be in this room with many friends and with this wonderful panel. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm thrilled to be sharing a few perspectives about storytelling, this important recommendation that came out of the summit last year. I'm the kid of diplomats from Argentina, but I'm also, my mother is a fiction writer from South America, and I grew up around writers who have, from an early age, taught me the wonders and the importance of storytelling. So thinking about storytelling now in my practice and my research as a design educator, stories are always very much front and center in the work I do. And I wanted to talk this evening and start with a couple of quotes. One by the great creative writer and teacher Robert McKee, who reminds us that stories are the currency of human contact. And I think that's really important for us in the space of design and design of social impact, where there is so much emphasis on human-centered design and on the amazing opportunity and skill set that designers have to really empathize with users and engage from a human perspective. The second quote that I chose to share with you tonight comes from a very different stream of thought, and that's the great philosopher, German philosopher Gadamer, who reminds us that stories are the reservoir of tradition and the medium in and through which we exist and perceive our world. And what's powerful about that statement, as we connect it back to design for social impact, is this reminder that we are always in a space of interpretation, and we are bringing, as you mentioned earlier, very specific lenses. And when we are working with underserved communities, whether they are those in our urban centers here in this country or very far away in informal settlements in the global south, there is always this dialogue, this dialectic that takes place, and this give and take. And it's through stories that we can come together and think about that. So keep those statements in the back of your mind. And as I share very quickly a little bit of the approach we've taken at our Center College of Design through the work of Designmatters. I've had the great privilege to come to our center in 2001 and be given the blank slate to think about educational programming for our college that would connect our students in a meaningful way, globally, locally, and nationally, and with a big passion for development, along with a whole task force of educators and a team at the college, faculty and students and alumni. We really spent a year thinking about what could become of this investigation and this exploration. That became a department at our center that is known as Designmatters. And this was our original mission back in 2001, which continues to be true today, this idea of promoting research, advocacy, and action through an ongoing exploration of art and design education. And for us, within that mission, the mandate of archiving, telling the stories of every educational project that we undertake and every initiative we undertake was really really important from the beginning, and it's something we've stayed very true to over these years. So backing up another second, as we think about storytelling in this evening's conversation, let's also accept a couple of premises that are important to be reminded of. We are at a time today that is extremely exciting in the design field itself, where design knowledge is a domain that exists within a framework of culture as a whole, and it's never been more important than now. The scope that design and designers have in our culture is really accepted, I believe, and embraced in a very powerful way. The second premise to be also mindful of is that we are observing, and as the report points out, very consequential shifts in the role that designers are playing in this social impact arena. So if we really accept those two premises, we also have to understand that this is a really emergent moment in time, and therefore the emphasis of storytelling is one path to follow to really capture the moment and make it understood outside our field. Very quickly, the approach we've taken through the portfolio of Designmatters at our Center College of Design has been, I would say, twofold. The first one, a real emphasis and a lot of work and resources going to documentation through publications and through exhibitions. Publications, books, even in this day and age, really continue to be an amazing artifact that captures and articulates a whole initiative and a whole project. And so this has been a very important emphasis of ours, of really bringing different streams of knowledge. When we did a very large initiative around earthquake preparedness in the state of California, part of that effort was to bring people like the former head of FEMA, James Lee Witt, to write and to tell the story in his perspective and bring designers to collaborate in that initiative. When we embarked on an initiative around water poverty in informal settlements in South America, again, the idea not only of doing the work with our students, documenting processes and research through the studio's work, but also capturing it in a publication has been important. I believe that a lot of us, educators in universities and in design institutions, are always so busy doing the work, teaching the classes, that that moment to reflect and capture processes is not always a priority. And it's really a shame, because a lot of knowledge and a lot of that process gets lost once the team and the students and the faculty move on. Exhibitions, it's really the work of the Cooper-Hewitt is really showing the power of engaging the public through that way of telling stories. And again, it's been an important focus of our work. And not only having exhibitions within networks of designers, but also having exhibitions in unlike arenas. We do a lot of work with the United Nations, and so having an exhibition of beautiful design around the Human Rights Declaration, for example, in the hallways of UNESCO in Paris, suddenly allowed us to interface and interact with a very different kind of audience around very important issues that, again, they might not have seen visualized and captured with the beautiful way that great design can do. So there's also another aspect, obviously, of storytelling that's very powerful in design and for designers, and it's with the communication and the media that they have access to in the projects themselves. And then the question becomes, how do we disseminate it again outside our space? Again, it's been an emphasis of ours to through partnerships and unlike partners, get those stories out and getting the work, the portfolio of our students and our faculty out in the world. And a very powerful way of doing that, again, when you have global partners, is through mainstream media channels. So we work very closely. We're an NGO affiliated with the UN Population Fund, for example, and always have the opportunity to see the work of our students, again, reach very important audiences globally. And I put in just one piece. I couldn't resist not sharing one of these small advocacy messages that were produced by our students last year, promoting the role of youth and the generation of youth as the UN embraces the post-2015 agenda of the development goals. So here's a 30-second piece on that.
We live in a world of 7 billion people, of which 1.8 billion are young people who want control of their future. We are youth, and this is what we want. We want to live in a world where we are not discriminated against. We want to marry and have children when we are ready. We want to have a voice and not be silenced. We want to be empowered. We want to stop violence against girls and young women. We want all girls and young women to receive vital health care. We want to have control over our future. We are youth. We want choice. We want rights.
So this, again, was a very moving and powerful campaign our students did that premiered at the Rio Plus 20 Summit last summer. So 2 recommendations, short-term, long-term, that I wanted to bring forth based on the report. The first one is the idea of making a case for case studies. We know that case studies have a rich history in other fields, of course, in the world of management and business, of exploring the space between theory and the experience of practice. And in the design community, we don't do enough of a good job, in my view, of pursuing those case studies. There are organizations like IDEO.org now, really documenting their work in powerful ways. I just had the opportunity to do some research around 4 case studies and looking at, again, a lot of wonderful work that some of our design consultancies, even like Frog Design, are doing in showing in a very open way processes of work with UNICEF, for example, on this project that I'm showing here. In Europe, organizations, teams embedded in governmental organizations, Mind Lab in Copenhagen, Helsinki Design Lab at Citra, doing a lot of work, capturing their projects, putting in case studies. And of course, the Winterhouse Institute Change Observer has done a lot in the last couple of years around case studies. So let's have more of these case studies and, again, have the right partnerships to have the resources to do them justice. And longer term, I think the recommendation is around storytelling, is not only doing these case studies, sharing the work, making use of the open platforms we have now to do so in a very effective way where we're really connected globally, but also thinking about and questioning ourselves, what are the tales that we're choosing to tell, and how can we engage in really actionable forms of dialogue where we also tell the stories of failure. We don't talk about failure enough. We talk about failing fast when we are iterating and designing, but when it comes to telling and capturing the stories of the projects, of these cases, from a design perspective, we tend to not have enough numbers or any quantitative lenses to bring to those, nor do we always have the courage and the honesty to talk about the difficulties and the challenges. And of course, we learn a lot from that dialogue of failure. So I'll leave you with another statement by Gadamer. It's through every dialogue that something new comes to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for your remarks. And so a persistent theme of the summit was the need for better tools to demonstrate the long-term impact of design projects and initiatives. And Bryan Bell is here to speak about creating a culture of evaluation and the SEED Evaluator.
I'd like to thank all the organizations who have made this happen. I'd like to particularly thank Lemelson Foundation, who has strongly supported our work in this area. In 2005, the Harvard Loeb Fellowship convened a forum with the challenge, how can designers do a better job of serving communities? One of the people at that forum was Steve Lewis, who is a past president of the National Organization of Minority Architects. And he told us a story about a young woman in his office at the General Services Administration, Kim Dowdell, who said to him, "We need something like LEAD that includes the social and economic, like SEED." So out of that convening, the SEED network was formed because we did believe that social, economic, and environmental challenges are what all of our communities need to look at, not just the environmental. So we quickly included others in the conversation. We grew to 200 members of the SEED network, and then we did a survey. And being a democratic body, we asked everybody to nominate principles of best practices for public interest design. We had over 100 submitted, and we took a vote, and 6 received a majority vote. One of these became our mission. Every person should be able to live in a socially, economically, and environmentally healthy community. What's important about this statement is it's common ground with the public. This is something that the public can also understand. We feel that design has an important role in achieving this mission. However, the public doesn't understand that relationship at this moment, and this is for us to prove, and this is why an evaluation is so important. The other principles were advocate with those who have a limited voice in public life, build structures for inclusion that engage stakeholders and allow communities to make decisions. Promote social equality through discourse that reflects a range of values and social identities. Generate ideas that grow from place and build local capacity. Design to help conserve resources and minimize waste. Now the SEED network is online, and people can join if they pledge to actively further the SEED mission and SEED principles and to use them as a guide for your work. We have 1,600 members, including 100 that we got in the last month. We're diversifying our stakeholders. Anybody who feels that resources should be allocated to a community's greatest challenges through a democratic decision-making process is a SEED stakeholder. That's the value proposition of SEED. Allocating resources to a community's greatest challenges through a democratic decision-making process. We continue to grow our stakeholders. Recently, we surveyed the AIA membership. 77% of AIA members agreed that the SEED mission was a valuable mission for the practice of public interest design. 75% of AIA members believe that the principles together represent an ethical basis for the practice of public interest design. So finding that common ground is one of the ways we're expanding the SEED network. However, a mission, principles, and a network are not having a positive impact in communities. How do you make the principle and mission actionable? Our answer was the SEED Evaluator. So what is the SEED Evaluator? The SEED Evaluator is a communication tool that allows communities to define goals for design projects and then measure the success in achieving these through a third-party review. Using the SEED Evaluator allows communities to develop their leadership and decision-making from within, while using a proven method and recognized standard of success, leading to possible SEED certification. The SEED Evaluator can assist individuals, groups, designers, communities, project planners, and participants achieve their goals that are focused on the triple bottom line of social, economic, and environmental issues. There are three fundamentals to the SEED Evaluator. We want it to be transparent. We want it to provide accountability. In other words, were the goals met? We want it to be inclusive. We want it to be a valid public participation process. So here you see a visual graphic of the 3.0 version, which will be released next week. There are three phases to the process. First phase is project basics, which includes a definition of who the community is, who the stakeholders are, how will they be involved in the decisions, what are the challenges, and what is the design product. The second phase involves more details, such as providing benchmarks and providing performance measures. We also ask, what will success look like, and how will you measure it? The third phase comes post-occupancy or post-implementation to find out if successful results have been achieved. The evaluator is based on the logic model, which is a tool used by grant makers, basically allows local communities to determine local solutions. These are the 9 areas of information that we ask for, which are drawn from the logic model. And this is a bottom-up. Unlike LEAD, which is a checklist that every community gets more points for just checking off, this is a method where every community defines their own metric for success. So this is an online tool. It basically walks applicants step by step through what we believe is a best practice process. Seed 1, as I said, is the basics. Here's our checklist of issues. Typically, a project will have 1 priority issue and then 2 secondary and third issues. In some cases, projects have been as ambitious as having 8 issues. We love other issues. We're trying to increase what we consider design issues. So we love when we get a new issue. A new issue we have now is restorative justice, is a recent issue. You see the yellow box in the screen. This is where the SEED reviewers give feedback on the project. So at the end of each of the phases, we send it back with either more work to be done or that it can move ahead to the next phase. Reviewers are people like Jamie Blosser, who's worked for many years with Native American communities as a Rose Fellow and now as a licensed architect. So there's a mentoring happening through the SEED process. Then you move on to part 2, answer questions such as what are the performance measures, which means how will you measure success. And then, as I said, after a period of implementation and use, if you're successful, the project can be certified. Then the projects become case studies with documentation of how they succeeded. Here's a SEED scorecard of a performing arts center in Durham. You can see that it lists social, economic, and environmental issues. Not all projects have to have all 3. We realize every community has a unique blend of social, economic, and environmental issues. Here's a project under certification process, but not there yet, Butaro Hospital in Rwanda. Obviously, it's addressing health, but it also provided jobs. So these are all listed here on the scorecard. So moving forward, we believe we need to have a professional standard in public interest design. We cannot make the mistakes and violate the public trust that other professions have, such as public health. In the Tuskegee study, for example, they let people die rather than give them treatment because some doctors in the U.S. Public Health Service thought this was in the public good. We can't make mistakes like that. We need to define a clear public design process in order to protect the public trust and also to include the public in the process. This is a project that I found on the Open Architecture Network that's supposed to protect 200,000 people from a tsunami. I'm just going to say I don't recommend any of you get into one of these if you're trying to survive a tsunami. But seriously, we cannot post projects online and represent to the public that these are in their interest. We need a process of vetting and protecting the public interest. And lastly, what we're doing is providing education and training. We have a Public Interest Design Institute. We've trained 400 people. In the seed process, 98% of people who attend say they will submit a seed project in the future. This is when we're having an impact. So just to summarize, the Seed Evaluator is a way to measure success, a communication tool, a community-driven process, a professional standard, and it can be a grant application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bryan. One question that emerged from the summit: how best can we partner local ingenuity, available resources with mentorship to address pressing problems through design? Nadia El-Kordi will discuss creating intelligent coalitions with the formation of the International Development Innovation Network.
Thank you, Cynthia. So I just want to start by saying that I'm very proud to be a part of this work with all of you and excited to be here tonight, but I'm also quite nervous to be speaking. And I hope that I'll manage to convey some of the magic and potential that we see in this network. So the International Development Innovation Network is part of the Higher Education Solutions Network, which is a partnership between the United States Agency for International Development and top US and foreign universities that are committed to solving global development challenges in health, energy, economic development, community resilience, and other important sectors. IDIN is a consortium, an international consortium of universities and institutions, and the heart of it all, innovators who are part of a network of participants, past participants in the International Development Design Summit, IDDS. So before I go any further, I'd like to tell you a little about what IDDS is. Notice in this photo that there are hands sharing, they're diverse, they're learning together, and there's evidence that building is taking place. The International Development Design Summit is an intense, collaborative, hands-on design experience that lasts several weeks each year. It brings together individuals from all over the world, different countries, over 20 countries are represented, and all different backgrounds, including those who are teachers, blacksmiths, students, doctors, welders, translators, and other areas. So though the theme changes from year to year at each of the summits that began in 2007, there is one thing that stays the same, and that's the spirit of what IDDS is. That sustainable development happens when people become active creators of solutions rather than passive recipients. Keeping this in mind, participants in this summit work together in design teams where they address challenges that are faced often by other members of their team. And they spend several weeks working together. They learn different parts of the design process together, and while they're learning, they're also developing prototypes to these difficult challenges in the world. It's a transformative experience for many who attend, and it often takes potential that's already there in the individual participants and sparks a fire in them. So, sorry. So we have a lot of individuals who have this fire in them, and when you bring them together, the effects are immense. This is the Zimba team at the end of IDDS 2010 in Colorado, where the focus was to bring projects and prototypes on the path to becoming ventures, to bring projects and prototypes on the path to becoming ventures and products. I apologize. So this team at the end of IDDS 2010 went their separate ways at the end of the summit, but they maintained connections with one another, and they even gained new team members who were inspired by the energy and the potential for this project. These team members, though they were located in different countries all over the world, they managed to maintain the connection. They worked together to apply for funding to continue their project work. And at this moment, there are pilots in 6 different locations in India and Bangladesh. Their project was an automated chlorine doser called Zimba that is intended to provide clean drinking water to villages that don't normally have access. Another project that came out of IDDS started in 2008, and the challenge that they received was to provide a way for mothers to breastfeed their infants without transmitting the HIV virus. And throughout the years, they found other team members through other IDDS summits, and they also worked together. The team was called Just Milk, to develop a product that today is intended to deliver nutrients and vitamins to infants in developing countries where there are issues of sterility and also of keeping medicines good. This next one is a little bit different, and there was a participant named Mensa from Ghana who was a young man very interested in improving his small village. He met another participant who came from India named Rajneesh, who had expertise for 15 years in developing and teaching solar technicians how to install solar lighting in homes in the Himalayas. So Mensa formed a connection with Rajneesh and began to save money for 2 years. He also applied for some funding to travel to India to work with Rajneesh and learn how to also install solar technologies so that he could bring it back to his home village and improve lives of those around him, who he saw had the energy and the inspiration to want to be studying and continuing in their work, but the day was too short to be able to do so effectively. And there are 3 points, the 3 blue dots, in India, because in addition to Rajneesh, there were several other IDDS participants from different years who were a part of the learning experience. So now Mensa has returned to Ghana and is working to start a business in solar lighting. These are examples of connections that formed after IDDS and that yielded very positive results. But there are other participants in IDDS who we occasionally hear from via email, and they have a lot of excitement and energy still. The fire is still inside of them. There are lots more participants who have been a part of IDDS with this energy and with this common vocabulary that they picked up from the design lectures that we have. The goal of IDIN is to tap into this network and all of this energy and to make it something stronger and something that can make a big difference in the world. So with this new network, IDIN strives to build the connections that already exist. For example, by having a searchable online database where these past participants who work on projects are able to find other participants or others in the network who have areas of expertise that can benefit them. So for example, with the Zimba, the automated chlorine doser, right now they need someone to redesign the doser to use a different material. And with this network, with this searchable database, it would be possible for them to send out sort of a call to the network to ask for people with this skill. The IDIN also strives to support the network in ways like with microgrants, so that when projects are at a stage where they can continue just with a little bit more funding to do some testing or to do further development, there's a way to do that. There's also the goal to expand the network so that there are many more of these individuals with the talent and the motivation and the common vocabulary in different parts of the world. And one other important part, with a network that's more connected, it will be easier to send out calls so that it can serve kind of as a design consultancy in a dispersed way, where certain challenges that arise can be sent out. And for example, if someone would like to develop a mango picker, they could send out a call to the network and say, is anyone capable or interested in joining a team to do this? Or if someone is interested in knowing if there is a market for moringa oil in their particular location of the world, they can send out a call to the network and find this information. So I mentioned earlier that IDIN is, part of it is an international consortium of universities. These universities have been working together for 6 years to put on these design summits, and each one of them contributes to one area or more of the design process. In forming a network where the collaboration between these universities is more formalized now, we have an opportunity to strengthen the collaboration and to put it together so that we are a lot stronger all together than we are as individuals. Also, as part of the network, we propose and we have started to establish innovation hubs in countries where we've already hosted a summit. So we hosted a design summit in 2009 and 2011 in Ghana, and we hosted a summit in 2012 in Brazil. At the end of the summit, there is a lot of energy that remains in the participants who have worked together for several weeks in this intense experience. And there aren't a lot of outlets for the participants to continue to work together, to collaborate, to have mentorship, to have a location where they can continue to build and work on their projects. These innovation hubs are going to be composed of 3 parts: an innovation center, where individuals in the community, including past IDDS participants, but also people who have not participated in IDDS, can go to learn from different workshops and also to access tools, mentorship, instruction, and design tools like Post-it notes for brainstorming. The innovation hubs consist also of the local consortium member, which is often a university. And of course, it consists of the local innovators who have been trained in IDDS. And the final part of the network is understanding the impact of local innovation. We have a lot of anecdotes about success stories and failures as well, but now we're able to do more rigorous research into the effects of local innovation and local innovators on international development. And the innovation centers in particular will serve this purpose too, because we can record who has attended a certain workshop or enterprises and ventures that have come out of projects that go through innovation centers. So in these different points of the International Development Innovation Network, we are a very university-heavy consortium. So students are naturally interwoven into each of the activities that we do. And with all of the energy and the potential, we hope that students will carry forward the work that we've started. Thank you.
Thank you. Often funds are not readily available or allocated to maximize positive impact. Krista Donaldson will discuss D-Rev's design approach and alternative ways to improve impact.
Thanks, Cynthia. Okay, while I'm pulling up my slides, I invite you, since I'm the last speaker, to stand up and stretch if you need to, and it'll also take pressure off me while I'm pulling up my slides. Good, I'm seeing some people stand up. Okay, great. So while you're standing up, and I'm waiting for my slide to come up, I'll tell you, I'm going to give a quick overview of D-Rev and then talk a little bit about the recommendations I made. So D-Rev, for those of you who don't know, stands for Design Revolution, and we're a nonprofit, and we focus on two areas, improving health and increasing income. And our target customers, and this key customers, we're not looking at beneficiaries, we're looking at customers, live on under $4 a day. We're really looking at products that scale. And so originally Paul Polak, one of our founders, was like 1 million people. He throws out a few other numbers. From my standpoint, it's just a lot of people. We're not talking about the village level. We're talking really global level. We're trying to tackle global issues where we have not seen a design solution. So I'm going to tell you 3 quick things about us. One is that we design world-class products. So these are products that perform on par or better than the best products on the market. And what you see here is me talking to several doctors at a public hospital outside of Delhi. And this is for a phototherapy device, Brilliance, that Cynthia mentioned in my intro, which is now on the market. But I'm not going to talk about that today. The second key thing to know about us is that our products are market driven, and that means they're not donated. We sell them, or we sell them through our partners, or our partners sell them on the open market. And what does this mean? That they have to be affordable. It also means that they have to bring value to users. And I think this is a key issue when we're talking about the customers we are. If they bring value, people will buy them. And if they value them, they're also going to use them. And that's key, obviously, if we want to get to impact. And I love these 2 pictures because on the left-hand side, you see a market of what we usually think of in a lot of the economies we work. But the right is also a market in India. They're both from India. And this is a medical device fair in Delhi about 1.5 years ago with one of our engineers on the right. The third thing to know about us is that we're user obsessed. We're not just human centered, but we're user obsessed. And we see the user not just as the person, but the market, the context they're in, whether they lose power for 16 hours a day, all these different issues that really go into designing really great products. And designing really great products to us, like I said on the last slide, is really about knowing the markets too, and knowing the business model and the best way to get these products to people. And from our philosophy, that brings about sustainable impact, not just a one-time, but ongoing, particularly if donor funds, which was mentioned in the beginning, get pulled out. These products should continue to be sustained on the market if the customer finds value in them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the projects we're doing, the Jaipur knee, and we now call it the Remotion knee, and I'll talk you through the name change. But you see a picture of it here on the right. And it was let me go back. It was originally developed by a group of students at Stanford University who eventually merged into us at D-Rev, where we've iterated the product and are now scaling it with some of the original students. A little bit of background. These are 3 amputees. They all have amputations above the knee. Does anyone know why or what the main cause of amputations are in what we call the developing world? Landmines is usually what people say. That's wrong. That's third. But what's number 1? Vehicle accidents. I won't make you suffer. But it's vehicle accidents, usually trauma coming out of vehicle accidents. So someone walking by the side of the road who's hit by a truck, somebody riding on the back of a moped gets hit. And this is very, very common. So these 3 gentlemen, what are their options? They live in India, not that far from Jaipur. And they actually don't have many options. And in many cases, you see people holding bamboo staffs. And that's really their only option in terms of kind of hobbling around for mobility. So thinking about options, this is a pneumatic knee. We call it a smart knee. This is something what our American veterans returning from Iraq or Afghanistan, if they were to need a knee, this is what they would get. But $20,000 is clearly out of the price range of our target customers. This is a low-end polycentric knee. I'm going to talk a little bit more about polycentric in a minute, but it more mimics the natural gait of how you walk. But it's a low-end one. And it's really designed for Westerners. So not a lot of dust, not a lot of water, not a lot of the conditions that we see with our customer groups. And then this is the ICRC knee, so the International Red Cross knee. And it's a single axis, and I brought one here tonight. So single axis, it just rotates along a single axis. So you can imagine what that means for stability, and I'll pass this around. And then just a little bit more background. What's the annual need? What's the size of this problem? And what we see actually is there's about 3 million amputees per year who need a prosthetic knee. And if you think about the leg system, there's a socket that the residual limb goes in, there's the knee, there's a pylon, and then there's a foot. And the knee is the most expensive and usually the most complex component, which is why we started with it. So I'm going to show you a video, and this is a man named Ash, and he's walking on a single axis knee similar to the one that we're passing around. So single axis, just think of it like a door hinge. And he's doing something we call a 10-meter walk test, which is just walking 10 meters back and forth, and it helps processes get a sense of the gait. And then this is the Jaipur knee that was developed by the students. And this is a young man named Kamal, who was in a motorcycle accident, and he's doing that same 10-meter walk test. So you can see there's a big difference with the stability. And it uses a polycentric mechanism like you saw with the metal one earlier that was around just over $1,000. When we started iterating this and working with the original team, one of the things that's really great too about the knee that we've designed is that it allows for local behaviors, for example. A lot of the Western knees we sell in the market don't allow for bending, for squatting, for praying, for sitting cross-legged. And there's a young man named Vishambar who's sitting cross-legged wearing one of our knees. So I want to address impact because I feel very passionate about when we talk about design in the social sector that we also talk about impact, because it isn't just about design, the activity of designing something or the thing, the product, but it's actually reaching that social impact. So how do we look at it with this project? And by the way, this picture is Kamal, who climbed a tree shortly after you'd seen him do the 10-meter walk test. We look at numbers of amputees fit. So this is more kind of like output, for example. And right now we're at over 4,600 amputees. And this is through a partnership with the Jaipur Foot Clinic in India. I think the really telling, though, in terms of impact is compliance. Are people still wearing it 6 months later? And over 79% are. And what we're finding, and we're just starting to do better research now, is that we're seeing that there's less social stigma now that people are able to be mobile. People are able to hold jobs. I talked to a teacher who had lost his job once he had lost a limb, and now he's able to return to work. Where are we now with this particular project? This is the original Jaipur knee that you see here, and I have another one. I have my bag of tricks here tonight. Okay, so this is the original Jaipur knee, and this is the one that's being used in India, and you'll see it's pretty crude, and it clicks, and that was actually some of the feedback we got here for our web viewers. But this was actually some of the feedback we got, so you'll see when I pull out version 2 that we put a noise dampener in. Another kind of feature I'll point out that came back from early feedback with this particular knee is that when you wear it under pants or a skirt, you have a not very nice profile here, so it's pretty clear that someone's wearing a prosthetic. Shortly after the project came into D-Rev, we did a second iteration. And you can see here, and if you see here, there's a noise dampener, so it's a little quieter. We're still working on it. And then you'll see also the curvature has changed. Another feature we learned from this version 2 that we tested in Ecuador was that it takes a lot of energy to bring the leg forward. And so we added a spring. It's not on this one because people often pinch themselves when I pass it around. But there's a spring to help bring the leg forward. So I'll pass this one around too. One of the lessons learned from that iteration was that it was too big, and I think politely one of our users said, well, maybe that's fine for you Westerners, you're bigger than we are. So that resulted in the version 3, which unfortunately I can't show you tonight, but if you check in with us in about a month, you will be able to see it. But I can tell you it has a much slimmer profile, and we really tried to design it aesthetically beautiful. This is something we want people to be proud of. And even if they do hide it under foam or they do hide it under skirt or pants, it's really something that they feel very strongly about and are proud to have. Oh, and I should mention that with our market-driven model, really what we're looking at is how can we make this super affordable? And this is $80. And for a sense of comparison, I don't know if you remember, but the ICRC one that's going around is $105. So where are we now? The knee is being used at several clinics in India. The Jaipur Foot organization is the largest fitter of prosthetics in the world, and we're being used by their main clinic and then their second largest clinic right now. It's also been fit through temporary camps and some of our own field work. And we're just now going into field trials with the version 3, which you'll be able to see next month. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how to strengthen our field. This is my way of, I guess, saying recommendations. First, I kind of want to mention sometimes how we see the design process from the outside. You know, it's like identifying these problems, coming up with some ideas, proof of concept, call this the idea, but we really want to get to impact, right? And there's a lot of activity that happens between proof of concept and impact. If you want to take a market-driven model like we do, you have to commercialize it. And there's a lot of work designed for manufacturability, final design, tons of iterations like you've seen with our knee to get to commercialization. But to truly have impact, you want to deliver at scale. You don't just want to have 5 amputees wearing it in Ecuador like we did with our version 2. You want to be able to have this accessible to any amputee who needs it. So one of the things I just wanted to mention that I see a lot in our sector is there's a focus on the innovation or on the thing. And innovation doesn't equal impact. I kind of see innovation as the idea area on the left-hand side, but actually getting to impact requires a lot of activity and it needs a lot of funding. It's a lot of times we see funding that's focused on, quote, the seed activities, which is really that idea phase. And the other thing I was going to mention is getting from here to there, we call the valley of hard work. And I think those of you who are designers can probably appreciate this. And who knows what it's usually called? The valley of death. So we call it the valley of hard work. And so I guess my message there is to love the entire design process and to embrace it. And I guess the one thing I would add is I think universities are really great at the early stage, but they have a really hard time getting to the later stages of impact. And it's just the natural outcome of how an academic institution is structured. So we would love to see like more support throughout the entire design process to actually reach impact. And then the last thing I would say is we really believe everyone should have design training and design thinking. If you think about going from idea all the way to impact, you need a lot of different skills and a lot of different people. You need business people, you need market analysts, you need designers, you need all sorts of people. And the skills that we have in design, if you think about problem solving and user empathy and all these sorts of things, would hugely benefit everybody in this whole design process. So I want to end with this picture of Purnima. You might have seen this earlier, but I love Purnima and the story around Purnima. She was in a car accident with her father and her little brother, and her brother unfortunately lost his life, and she lost her leg. And she was in engineering school at the time and had to drop out because she lost her mobility and needed to be taken care of. And she was fit by the Jaipur Foot Clinic with one of our knees, and what she told one of our engineers when she was there was, I can return to school now. And for us, that is so empowering because we love the fact that she's going to school and she's going to become an engineer and hopefully be working on a lot of problems that she sees in her own society. So with that, thank you very much.
Wow. Wonderful, wonderful presentations. Thank you all. I'm checking with Sarah. How much time? Is it? Yep. Not one question? 5 minutes. Well, I just want to say a few things. A number of things that I heard tonight kind of reoccurred in many of the things that were said. Bottom up, open, whether it's online or locally, peer-to-peer, searchable databases, connections, both within the design community and outside the design community, interdisciplinary, different stakeholders. These are all things that seem to emerge out of the conversation tonight. And one of the ones, and it was wonderful that you ended talking about this, innovation doesn't necessarily equal impact. And I think that's really what we're talking about here tonight. How do we take this somewhat nascent field and really scale up? And I think all of us are interested in doing that and having really positive impact, not necessarily learning from our mistakes and moving forward from that. I have questions for each of you. I think maybe we're going to have some blogs after about this, and maybe I can pose those questions to you in the blog. But most of you talked about, because we have these practitioners, educators, students, government agencies, and funders here in the in the audience tonight. I really want to know, and we addressed it somewhat in the, pretty clearly in the white paper, and please download that from one of the different, you can see it in the different monitors, different websites. But from each of you, maybe just a very short answer, if possible. What do we need to do in the next 1 to 2 years as a short-term action? And then if you have enough time, the next 5 to 10 years. I guess one or the other, answer one or the other of those. Should we start with Mariana?
I'm going to say metrics, and better metrics to capture what we're doing.
I think we need to make this into a clear profession, and that profession is systemic permanent change. I think all these creative individual projects and individual people are great, but individual people and individual projects go away. So do catchy names. So public interest design is a permanent systemic change, just like public interest law and public interest health. I think that's what we need to create.
I actually agree with that, and I hope it's not cheating, but I've been thinking a lot of this on a personal level also, that it would be wonderful if this were a career path, a legitimate career path that has definition, and there are plenty of ways to access it, the way that law school is and medical school is.
I'll add, I would love to see, I guess long-term, to see our profession iterate itself. And so I feel like if you think back about the appropriate technology movement, we've done a lot of reinventing the wheel, and I'd like to see that end. And I think one way we could do that, and I think I've talked to some of you about this already, but getting students to do impact assessment. It gives them exposure to early failures and also where things are going really well.
I think that we have to be able to collaborate in this kind of coalition, as also Nadia said. I really think that in this networked society there are the possibility to create huge kind of projects that are articulated in many different places, and everybody has to find his own place. And to, as a designer, to create more focalized arena in which we can really confrontate and try to go on in the experiences that we are capable to do.
Thank you. We've run out of time. So the Summit's white paper is available free of charge online at Cooper-Hewitt.org, arts.gov, and Lemelson.org for those of you who are watching remotely. Please sign up for the upcoming NEA webinars this spring and summer on arts.gov. And Cooper-Hewitt has invited tonight's panelists to follow up with a series of blog entries, and you'll be able to find those on Cooper-Hewitt.org, and maybe I can pose some of the questions I had to the panelists in those entries. And thank you again, all of you, for coming tonight.